Hey everyone. So I am completely floored, excited, thankful for all the feedback we've been getting about the Tell Me More podcast. And you already know that I was nervous about it, but you guys have been just coming in and leaving the best feedback about how you're loving our conversations, about how you love the direction of things. I've been even getting a little bit of cheers about how brave and bold it is to speak up about issues that matter, especially during this time. And I gotta say, it feels really good, and I'm really proud of me and I'm proud of us, because a lot of you have been listening to these conversations that are uncomfortable and challenging and encourage us to embrace change, and you're showing up big even if you don't agree. And that's what makes, I think, Tell Me More podcast so different. Is I am not seeking to change your mind. I am not seeking to make you be like me. I am not seeking to make you feel bad about yourself or what you've done in the past or where you are. All I want is for you to, before you hold true to whatever it is you think is your reality about life, take a moment to listen to a lived experience from someone else. You know, maybe this is true, or maybe this is me, or maybe this is a different way of thinking that I need to add to my consideration, my pile of ideas, as I figure out kind of how I want to move forward next. And so I'm just really proud of you. You know, and I'm proud of me for doing the big scary thing, but I'm also proud of you for showing up and listening and standing in the discomfort for all of a few minutes as you learn more. So we've got so much more coming. Today's chat in particular is a really good one. Like, when I say really good one, I mean headphone warning. I mean, get the kids out the room, grab a notepad, sit down. We're about to go on a ride. Okay. This one is bananas. And next week, we'll have you floored. Like, it's just, we're coming in hot. So I'm going to get right to it. Our guest today, right, my sweet dear friend, Ginny Priem, is dynamic. She is smart. She's a keynote speaker and author of the book, You're My Favorite. And she knows everything about narcissism. Now, hold on right now. I know some of you are like, oh no, I've heard about this. It's on the internet, whatever else. No. I'm telling you that this is HBO, true crime worthy, Cosmopolitan magazine, like, tell your friends, viral on social media. Her story is insane. But aside from that, the fact that she's still standing, learned from it, and using what she's been through to help teach us, especially women like me, I'm not even kidding, women like me, women like you, what we have to do to protect ourselves is everything. So that's my take on it, but I'm super excited that Ginny's here to tell you so much more about narcissism. Ginny, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's funny because people will be like, thank you for having me. And I'm like, great, I'm glad you're here. Now let's talk about your deepest, innermost trauma. Like a mess, right?
Yeah, let's just dig right in.
Let's just dig right in. It's okay. I'm glad you're here, but also let's just tear into your business. So first things first, I want you to just tell me that if there was one truth, right? One thing that you wish you could just zap into everyone's brain about your lived experience, something that you've experienced in this world right now, what would that be?
So I think it really ties into, like you said, women like you, women like me, women like us. Mm-hmm. There's a very big differentiation between being tough and being strong. So tough is a material's ability to carry a load, but eventually it's going to break. And I think there's women like us, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I used to be so tough. Mm-hmm. I used to be really tough, and people thought I was strong, but there is a big differentiation. And when you've been through shit like I have, and your world completely implodes, you question everything about reality, everything about your life, your decisions. It does break you. Ooh. But it's sort of like this concept of kintsugi. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
not at all.
It's a Japanese art form. So when a bowl breaks or a vase breaks, instead of sweeping it up and throwing it away or trying to conceal or camouflage the breaks, they actually repair it with gold joinery.
Oh my gosh.
And it's believed to make the piece even more beautiful than it was before it was broken. That's kind of what I liken my story to, is that it needed to happen in order for me to come into my authentic self and live life fully as me.
Oh, so Then we're gonna have to get into it because that alone I think is so freeing. The idea of like, I don't have to be, I can be strong, you know what I mean? But the reality is like, we don't want to confuse tough and strong, right?
Yeah.
Because they're two different things. They're two different ways of life. But, you know, people will put that title on us and then we'll think, so tell me more about how you came to all of this. You know, you say your story, but girl.
So I was single, living my best life, and I got introduced to this guy named, we'll call him Chad. That's what I call him in the book.
I love it, Chad. Oh, y'all already know if the story starts with a Chad, okay, or a J name. No offense to my producer, we love him, but J names, okay. J names have a historical reference on social media, being like, "Where is this going?" Right. Yep. So if the story starts with a Chad, we know it's going to be spicy. Go ahead.
Well, and there also might be a Karen in the story. So anyway, so Chad and I are introduced, and I was very resistant, but he was very persistent. And part of the reason why I didn't want to date him is because he had 2 kids. Okay. And I'd been down that road before.
Are you just not like, do you not see yourself as a mom type, or you just weren't looking for that at that point? Or how old were you at the time?
I was late 30s, like 37.
Okay, so you were grown, old enough, like you knew better, like you knew where you were.
Absolutely. So a couple of things. This will weave into the story a little bit later, but I've always had a very difficult relationship with my mother. And I always question, oh my gosh, is it hereditary? Would I be a really bad mom?
Oh my gosh.
So I think that was part of it. And then it's like, if you go down that path, there's the potential for you to get your heart broken, not once, but 3 times.
Right. So you're losing more people. So it wasn't that you necessarily didn't want to be a mom or whatever, but you had things in your head about what mothering would look like. And so you're like, just not in this season. Like, not for me.
Yep. Not for me, because I don't want to go down that path. Well, I went down that path. Spoiler alert.
Right. Spoiler alert. Chad had 2 babies. Okay. Got it.
And I was really good at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I did fall in love with him eventually, and I fell in love 2 more times with those kids. They're just lovely. But eventually, we're dating. They move into my house. You know, they split the time between him and their mom, or us and their mom. And so they were with us every other, weekend-ish, like Thursday to Sunday was our custody schedule. And I was coming home from a work trip, and one of my friends wanted to urgently meet for cocktails at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night.
Wait a second. Okay, so first of all, like, I don't ever have friends urgently want to meet for cocktails not at 10 p.m. Not like you can't go home, come from the airport to go get cocktails. That alone would have my heart racing. But you're traveling for work, right? So like timeline wise, you dated, he was into you, you move forward, you cross some of your things that you typically wouldn't have on your list. And now you're playing house. You guys aren't married or engaged or anything? No, but just you're together. How many years has it been?
Like about 1.5 years.
Okay, so it's like official.
Yeah.
And you're working in corporate, right? Like you have a pretty high powered, position of stature, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the friend wants to meet her. Why am I nervous? Y'all, I read the book. Okay. Why am I nervous? Because I'm like, I'm just sitting here with y'all. Like, what's going to happen? Let me be quiet. Go ahead.
Okay. And I don't know who can relate to this, but all day I'm thinking, what is going on with her? Is her dad sick? Is she okay? Does she have cancer? My mind is like reeling with what is so big that she needs to meet urgently for cocktails on a Tuesday, because it was not that kind of friendship. So I get there and she's sobbing. She's got a stack of papers in front of her in the booth in the restaurant. It's like 10:30 at this point by the time I, get there from the airport, or maybe it was about 10. And so I like reach across the table and I'm like, to touch her arm, I'm like, I've been so worried about you all day. What is going on? And she's like, it's not about you. Well, actually it is, but it's about Chad. She received this arrangement of evidence that he was not who I thought he was whatsoever. Basically, I realized like there's a monster living in my house, at home, in my bed right now, in that moment.
Okay, girl. So when I say the goosebumps and the chills right now, I don't even know if this is every woman's worst nightmare, because you don't even think or expect this is coming. I have to ask, before she sat down, you said you had no idea. How absolutely clueless were you? Like once you sat there and she said that, were you like, oh, of course, or like I saw some indication, or was it just like, I am floored?
It was a little bit of both. Okay, so it's a little bit of, you're shocked that this is reality, but deep down in my gut, I knew.
So what did she find? What do we need to know?
So someone had come forward. There was a woman that thought that she was his girlfriend. And here's the crazy thing, Nicole, like even since you and I have last chatted, so much more happened. So I continued to learn so much more. I mean, it was like drug problems, financial problems. It's chronic cheating, like definite sex addiction.
What?
He was posted in one of those groups on Facebook, and immediately like 100 women
Oh, the like,
started
don't date
commenting.
my boyfriend groups?
Yes.
Listen, people don't know these exist. There are legit groups where women are like posting pictures of their exes being like, don't date my ex, here's the deets. And like, it's funny because, you know, some of them obviously are women who are just like mad or angry or whatever. But you said that he's one of those where some will have like crazy threads like, I dated him or I went out with him or he left this at my house. You're kidding me that Chad is in one of those forums. You are kidding me right now.
Hundreds of women reached out to me.
I am so skeeved out by this. Like the developments post book, the book wasn't even ready to go to print because there is so much more.
There's so much more. I mean, I'm talking women, the number of women that were like, I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out to you because I dated him when he was living in your house. They had no idea at the time, but then you kind of connect all the dots and the pieces all come together.
So wait, what did your friend actually sit down on that paper? And also, how did she even know? Like, what made her start looking into it?
Well, that's a whole story for another day. I think she wanted to be the hero and control my life, quite frankly. So this is part of the old Ginny patterns that came to light through all of this. So I was picking, I had a broken picker is what I like to say. I had a broken picker for a while because I was picking what was familiar to me, which was abusive, emotionally abusive patterns of behavior.
So I think that's worth noting in terms of the lesson of all of this, right? Or getting to some of the lessons you teach, that it's not uncommon. And I think a lot of people, I can literally feel my stomach flipping because, you know, I've shared before that I've experienced this also, you know, in terms of narcissism, that when you first get out of a narcissist relationship and you start examining the tangential and surrounding relationships you have, you'll hear people say, and I was one of these people, I don't know what happened. It's like I got divorced and I had to like cut everyone, you know, like, or I realized like once I stopped talking to this family member, I had to get rid of these people, or I stopped being part of this friend group and now I don't talk to anyone more. And you think it's you. You're like, not I like can't keep these relationships, only to find out it's the picker.
I did so much unsubscribing to negative, toxic relationships and behaviors in my life. And to your point, one of the hardest things, and I know people are going to think maybe this sounds really harsh, but if this is happening, you have to, yes, look at the behaviors around you, but you've got to take that hard step of turning that lens inward and going, what is my role in this? What are my patterns of behavior that I need to really take a hard look at?
Ooh, so looking at Chad, you know, you're finding out he is everything that's our worst nightmare, right? He's a cheater, financialized, drugs, like, you know, just all of the things. And it sounds like because it's hundreds of women that this was just like woman to woman, like he just preys on women.
Oh no, he preys on men too.
Oh, girl. Oh,
they do not discriminate typically. And I also want to, this is not exclusive to romantic relationships. This can happen in business relationships, in families, in friendships, at work. They hide in plain sight. And that is one of the biggest, scariest things about them.
So let's talk about what them is, right? And if y'all are just listening, you have no idea. I just sat up. Okay. Like, so let's talk about what them is. So, you know, there are some people listening right now who are like, okay, well, maybe, you know, my man or my girl or my friend or whatever isn't that bad, right? We're not talking leaving a wake of disaster in their path, but some of the attributes, I know y'all listening right now are like, well, that sounds familiar, or what do you mean with this? Give me an example of a specific story or behavior that you saw from Chad where it was like he came home, he was late. What does it look like in practice?
Yes. Oh, I can give so many examples. So and this one's I'm going to tell this in a way that it brings in several different components of narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. As a disclaimer, I do want to say we're not here diagnosing anybody. Nope. This is for educational and informational purposes only. And we're not going around calling everybody a narcissist.
Not at all, which happens on the internet.
Yes.
People love to just point and be like, oh, well, that person's a narcissist. When in that case, it might just be that they have self-confidence. You know what I mean? Like, or that person a narcissist because maybe they had an isolated moment of like behavior, you know, that was just narcissist-like behavior. But it doesn't mean that they have the disorder like you're saying.
Correct. It is a scale. And so why do I have any business talking about this? So I've studied the hell out of it. I do a ton of research. I work with psychologists and psychotherapists, experts from all around the world. And yay, personally, I have over 40 years of experience of close contact with narcissists.
Clinical experience. Gotta love that.
So I've been there, and I come to this conversation from a severe place of compassion for anybody that's been through it. And so that's what I just want to reiterate that. So let's talk about gaslighting. Okay. So gaslighting is, and this is to talk about the misinformation. Love the show Ginny and Georgia, not just because Ginny.
I love that show. Okay. Shout out to Ginny and Georgia. But when I tell you, I watch that show, and I it's funny because I watch it from, if you guys aren't familiar with it, Ginny and Georgia is about like a mom and daughter that are like, the mom has a whole other life. The daughter's kind of tagged along for the ride, and they just keep reinventing themselves while they go from town to town to town, right? And again, chaos in the wake. People watch it, and I literally will listen to their take on it. Some people are like, oh, they have such a warm mother-daughter relationship. Some people will be like, oh, the daughter's so mature and grown. I watched that joint, and I said, get this girl away from her mother. She is a mess. But then also, maybe that's me.
Yeah, trauma bond much.
That's what it is. It's giving trauma bond.
Yeah, it's totally giving trauma bond. Ugh. But love that show, and not just because Ginny is in the title.
I know.
Or
it's so
one
good,
of the,
though.
One
It's
of the
so
characters.
good, though.
Yeah, it's so good. But they're in one of the most recent episodes, I believe it was episode 3 of this most recent season.
Spoiler alert.
They talk about gaslighting. And she goes, oh, Mom, you're always gaslighting me. You're invalidating my feelings. That's not what gaslighting is. And so to your point that there's so much misinformation out there. So gaslighting actually stems from the 1950s, where a husband started dimming the lanterns, the lights in the house, and the wife would go and turn them back up and ask him about it. And he would say, no, you're imagining it.
Ooh.
So what they'll do is make you question reality, and then you start to make you feel like you're going crazy, that what you experience, they'll try to make what you experienced not happen, or make you believe that it didn't happen.
So even if you're looking at something and you're saying, I'm pretty sure that wall is blue, and the wall is blue.
Yes.
They'll say, oh, it might have been blue, but now it's not, or something like that. Just
like, we can just use a really good example. I can be like, Nicole, I'm not tapping my forehead with my finger.
I'm watching you tap your forehead with your finger.
I'm not tapping my forehead with my finger.
I'm watching you do it.
And it will continue to persist until you're like, wait, is she really tapping her forehead with her
You're just questioning
finger?
your own mind, even though you know better.
And it creates so many issues. And so when this happened for me, a very significant issue, we had just gotten home. I had just taken him, Chad. We're back to Chad, because I'm going back to your original question of an example of something that I experienced. And so we talked about gaslighting, misinformation out there. And now bringing it back to the full circle of a really significant time when I experienced this.
Yeah.
So I had just taken him on a glorious 10-day vacation to Italy.
Oh, wow.
We got back. The next day I had to turn around and leave. I had to go to a work trip in Orlando, Florida. And I remember that, and so this is a trust your intuition moment, ladies. So I remember I was sitting on the edge of the bed in the JW Marriott in Orlando, Florida. And I felt like I was texting with him, and then all of a sudden it was like 7:30 at home, and he was like, I'm going to bed. Like 7:30 is pretty early.
I mean, unless you're like in middle school.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah, it's like kind of weird. Yeah.
I mean, he's middle school mature at best. But
tell the truth.
We're truth tellers
We're
here.
truth tellers here.
So I felt like this wave of truth just like wash over me. It was this moment, this gut instinct, this gut intuition. I was like, he's cheating on me. Now, I had this big lump forming over my eyebrow, and I had just had some precancerous skin cells removed from my left breast. And I get home and I questioned him. And I said, he also took Viagra, like candy. And so I started acting out of my own character, something that I would never do. Like if you're in a loving, trusting relationship, I started counting his pills.
Oh, see. Yeah. Like checking the phone. I always say that, like, I don't have that relationship with my, my current husband, and I don't have to check his phone. I don't need to see like what websites he's visiting, like any of that. Nor if I did see something, it'd be like, okay, well, that was your choice. And now we got to take the next steps, right? Like, I don't thank you, therapy and prayer. But when you find yourself, double stepping and checking stuff or moving things or whatever, it's a sign that there probably already is. You don't need to wait for what you're looking for, right?
Yes. And that is something, and I think that's another thing too, to pay attention to yourself when you are acting out of your own character and doing things that you don't typically do or you don't do in other relationships or you've never done in any other relationship. That's a really big red flag.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, I sat down and I talked to him about it. And then what he did was, this is a specific term within gaslighting called DARVO. It's when they deny and then attack and reverse the victim and offender. That's what it stands for.
Ooh.
So
wait, I really so I've never heard of DARVO. So deny. So they'll say like it's not thing, attack. And then you said reverse the victim
and offender.
So the R is reverse, victim and offender. So flip it around.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess we're about to hear how it happens.
So this is how they flip it right around on you. And this is where, so we often hear about narcissists being very arrogant and egotistical. That really is stemmed from insecurity, deep insecurity, and a wounded ego. So they either want to be the hero or then they'll turn themselves into the victim.
See, and I think that this is really important to call out because a lot of people hear narcissism and they think big personalities, people who are really, really strong, people who have like power positioning. So I think that hero is what we see on TV, or it's what people might say about, this current administration. That's a phrase that's commonly used, about the president, is that like, oh, he's a narcissist, or all presidents, frankly, people often will say like, hey, they're narcissist or they have this big ego. But in reality, a narcissist can also present as the victim.
Well, you can see the childish behavior. It's stunted. And they have these, we call them narcissistic temper tantrums or rage. And so they'll lash out if they don't get their way, if they're not being controlled. And aside from him being the president, psychologists and psychotherapists, experts for decades have used Donald Trump as a prime example.
Oh, prior to being president.
Yes, since the 1980s. They've used him as a prime example.
Okay,
yes.
Got it. Just and part of that is also the victimization part of it. And you said it stems from an insecurity though.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So a narcissist will say like, sometimes I'm the biggest person, I'm amazing, but sometimes they'll say, oh, woe is me. This big bad person's coming after me because, nobody loves me. So everyone should love me.
Yeah. That's a really great.
That's bananas.
Yes.
That's bananas.
It is bananas. So
you're sitting down with Chad.
So I'm sitting down with Chad after I'd counted his pills and I asked him about it.
Wait, what did you find, girl? Were there pills?
They were empty. So there's 2 in this one pack before I left on the trip. And when I got home, it was empty.
Oh, so you would count them before you would leave and then
in my nightstand, right? Like in
right.
Well,
of
in
course.
His,
no, that makes sense.
Nightstand,
right.
But it was my nightstand.
Listen, it was all your nightstand. You was paying the bills. It was all your nightstand.
I was paying all the bills.
But that's crazy. So okay, this is what you're saying, the gaslighting thing, right?
Yep.
Like there were pills and now there aren't pills.
Yep.
Like there's really nothing and we know what Viagra's for, ladies. We know no one's taking Viagra because they want to lower their blood pressure. Okay, they're trying to raise their blood pressure. So since we know this, you say to him, "Ain't no pills."
Yeah.
What's going on? What the fuck?
Deny. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know where they went. If they were there and they're gone, I don't know what happened to them. And then I think he denied for long enough.
Who else in the house is taking the Viagra, Chad?
Yeah, hopefully not the kids.
I know, Chadley. Okay, where Chadley did this Viagra go? Like, are you kidding me? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. And then turned it into, okay, fine, I'll tell you where they went. Well, why don't you just tell me where they went to begin with?
Also, don't act like you're doing me a favor.
Right.
Like, of course you should. Like, I got 0 benefit from this.
It's just like, okay.
It's not like I want them to be gone. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then it was, oh, well, I loaned them to my friend.
What a generous soul. Oh, what a generous soul. Let's just deflect it over there.
That's so nice. So lie. And then all of a sudden it was, had I known there was any trust issues in this relationship, I would have never uprooted my children and moved them into your house.
Oh.
Now, can we just put the brakes on there for a second? Because he lived in 5 or 6 different places in a 5-year window. The most stability that they ever had when they were with him post his divorce was
with
with
you.
me.
But how wild, because, you know, and as you can tell, I don't know if you can tell, y'all, I'm a little spicy, a little triggered right now, but, you know, the thing that's wild about that, especially this final portion of this reverse victim part, is like, here you are making the whole conversation about what the conversation's not about. Instead of let's talking about the fact that, like, you know, this, and this are what I brought to the table. Now let's talk about how dare you even bring this up because blah, blah, blah trauma and such experiences. So, I mean, did you take the bait? Like, did you know kind of that this was what was happening at the time, or were you just sort of falling into the conversation?
So the point of gaslighting is for you to leave feeling very confused. And when I say I left that conversation so confused, and it's like, I know the evidence was there, but the way that they manipulate the conversation, and we had just one of the kids that weekend for like an extra kind of special date, or one of them was away. And so they went to a movie and asked if I wanted to go. And I just laid in bed and I sobbed because I was trying to figure out what is really happening. Oh, and by the way, that lump that was growing above my eyebrow was shingles. I got shingles on my face in my 30s because I was so stressed.
Ginny, did I tell you I got shingles?
No.
Girl, I literally, I'm not even kidding. When I was in my post-separation window, I, on my back had like a rash appear, and then a lump, and I thought it was a spider bite. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it's just like a bite or something. It hurt so much that I literally was faint. I felt sick. I could not do things. My joints hurt. I finally went into a dermatologist to get like a spot, like a freckle looked at. And she was like, oh, you had shingles? Because it was like scarred over. There were marks. And I was like, shingles? I was like, shingles is for old people, right? Because, you know, you see the ads for it where they're like, get the vaccine so you don't get it at whatever. And they're like, oh, no, if you have stress, your body literally is breaking down. It's immune. So if you guys don't know this, it is not normal to get shingles in your 30s. That is like in your 60s plus, you know, and it's because at that point your immune system's jacked. But if you get it in your 30s, it is almost 100% stress induced. It is your body responding to a trauma or to some sort of decision. And literally, I had shingles.
Yeah, we've got the battle wounds to prove it.
The battle wounds, girl.
We've got the battle wounds to prove it. So I have this scar on my face that will always be there. And luckily,
did you know it was shingles? Like, did you get it checked out?
So I worked in the aesthetics industry for almost 20 years. And one of my dear friends, I had her, Dr. Tureen, she was on my podcast and we talked about it. We talked about like how trauma and stress triggers these types of things. So you have to pay attention. Sometimes our bodies tell us before our minds and our brains and our hearts can catch up. So we live in a society where fairy tales are like
it's a thing everywhere,
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you should have that feeling of butterflies in your stomach. That's sometimes a warning. Sometimes your body is giving you these warning signs, right? So like my hair all broke off and fell out. It's taken me years to like get my hair back. I had, like I said, I had the abnormal skin cancer lesions, shingles on my face in my 30s. How was like your
blood pressure, headaches, like any of that? I had all of those.
I get migraines.
Yeah.
But I still do. So
yeah. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to call you out on this one. And this is something that I think is important because I do try to be as balanced as I can. Like, Ginny, what the fuck? You are a grown ass woman. You were damn near 40. You are, you know, all of these things. You were making significant revenue. You had your own house, your own shit, your own life. You were set and good to go. So since you are this strong woman, how did you not know that this was happening to you? Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's not, and I want everyone to hear, I'm not victim blaming. I just want to make sure that we're hearing that the language that we may be telling ourselves or the language that others may be saying around us. Like, ain't no way some man's coming in with his 2 kids and taking over your life, right? It's hard to believe even looking at you. What happened?
So this is the fucked up part. Sometimes we pick what's familiar to us. I grew up in a narcissistic household. I have a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic sibling. And you don't, especially if you grew up in that type of environment, it's familiar. And sometimes there's comfort in familiarity. It doesn't mean it's good, but there is that comfort in that familiarity. You start to look at different behaviors that you develop if you did grow up in a narcissistic household. People pleasing, perfectionism. People strive for extreme success because you're always looking for love or attention from that parent that should have just been unconditional.
Of course.
And narcissists prey on successful people. They're social climbers.
So let's say so that right there, I think, is something that is very different than what you see depicted in movies and things like that, because the narcissist is supposed to be the fancy one, right? That's that hero thing you talk about, where it's like, how is someone who's president preying on someone who's, in a different position, like a celebrity or whatever else? Like, can you just tell me a little bit more about that? Because oftentimes you'll hear these women who I live in LA now, right? I know a lot. There's actually, and I'm not going to like out her or whatever, but she's a very popular, high profile actress, host, and she was in a relationship with like a very high profile rapper, and throughout her divorce, she stayed really quiet, didn't really talk about it, kind of utilized the courts, and was very respectful and just focused on being a mom in her own recovery. When I tell you this girl was run through, people are like, you are strong, you are capable, you did this, while watching her ex, who has a history of doing this, like just drag her through the mud on social media, lean in on all this stuff, but try to come after everything from her kid to her income to all these things. And she's just taken it. And little do people know, like, this is a strong woman who literally is like trying to get by. So Ginny, why didn't you leave? That's what people always ask her, is like, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you, why didn't you do something? At what point did you wise up? What was the changing point where you were like, there's something happening here, I got to get out?
So one of the things about narcissistic abuse is it's called CPTSD. So it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not, PTSD is usually caused by one big event that happens in people's lives. Like, for example, this woman who I know, she was kidnapped by Somali pirates and held hostage in the desert for 93 days, right? Like, major incident, major trauma. Complex PTSD is what narcissistic abuse victims experience. So it's all of these little micro traumas that happen along the way that's almost undetectable. And they do things like they start to isolate you. They talk bad about all your friends. And so then you don't have anybody to talk to. So if any of this is resonating with you, please seek therapy. And do not isolate yourself, because that's exactly what they want. They want you to be isolated. They want you to be confused. Sometimes they will make you financially dependent on them so that you can't leave. Or you get to the point where you're willing to just start over and
But in
leave.
your situation, he wasn't financially.
No.
So, and I think we may be familiar with the one version, but talk to us about where you were. You know what I mean?
So the other version is they will present an image of success. They will lie. So they have a lack of empathy. So in order to have narcissistic personality disorder, they would actually have to go to therapy, which it's the it's the only mental disorder where everyone around them ends up in therapy except for them.
Right.
And you've got, so there's 9 different characteristics and 5 of them have to be persistent and be damaging to their relationships in order for a diagnosis. Again, we are not diagnosing here.
Right.
But lack of empathy. They will do anything at the expense of others.
To not feel, to not whatever. And are children exempt from this? Like if, you'll hear about people who get divorced and they won't see their kids for 3 years, but like if they, suddenly are having a day or they want to call or they want to put them on social a bunch or whatever, you'll see that traction. But it's not an actual, how are you or whatever.
They will portray that they are the best parent in the world.
Oop.
Yep. That's what Chad did. But there's a period when they kind of figured out what happened between us. And spoiler alert, they're still in my life, as is their mother. We're very close. We do vacations together.
That's bananas.
Yes.
So the victims of Chad are now raising the kids as a commune.
Basically.
Together, a collective, the Chad collective. You guys need shirts. It's a whole thing. What? Okay, so I was we got a merch idea, y'all. So if you're in the Facebook group, it's coming soon, Chad Collective. So there's that. So the people will play the victim, even though they are abusive.
Yep. They will lie about their accomplishments. They'll say that they have degrees that they don't have. They'll leverage relationships. Like I said, it's kind of this social climbing. So they have this obsession with beauty and success. So they will glob onto people that have money or that can elevate their lives in some way.
It's scary because I'm literally sitting here being like for anyone who's gone through this. So we've got 2 so far: lack of empathy, lying about degrees and success, and like clutching on to people who are like social climbery. It is scary because I'm sitting here like going through my brain like, you know what I mean? Like just either about the past or thankfully not so much the present, but that is a thing.
It is absolutely a thing. They have this sense of grandiosity that they are better than others. So they will overvalue themselves and then undervalue others or devalue others.
Will they say that out loud or is it kind of like in their brain?
Oh, no, they'll say it out loud. They'll say they don't talk badly about other people and that they don't like drama. But while they're saying that, they're literally bad-mouthing people and being dramatic, right? And creating drama.
Ooh.
So you have to watch, like one of the things I can say is watch for consistency or inconsistency. If something feels too good to be true, it probably is. And if something is nonsense or doesn't make sense, it's probably nonsense, right? So you have to really look at the patterns of behavior. And everybody has some narcissistic tendencies.
Sure.
My sense of entitlement is I don't like to sit in traffic.
Yeah, no, I don't like lines. Like that's my thing is like, I'm like, what do I have to pay to not stand in this line? Like, can I get the pre-check? Can I get the VIP? Like whatever, like sis wants to go. So I get it.
But that's because you probably want a sense of efficiency, right?
Absolutely. I don't like wasting time. Like I just want to go do the experience and keep it moving.
Yeah. You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
So there's all of these different characteristics. And when it creates a problem in relationships is when it becomes problematic. And again, it can be any type of relationship. It's not just romantic. But when people ask, why didn't they stay? The biggest reason is they didn't realize that they were being abused.
So you had no idea. Smart, like, again, not victim blaming. I just am trying to be this other voice that I think we have, but you're a smart girl, right? Like, and understand that, look, raising hand, you know, you're a smart girl. Why didn't you get out sooner? How long were you with Chad?
About 1.5 years.
Girl, like in your house with these kids, like 1.5 years and you're dealing with this chaos, you know, like you didn't need him.
I didn't. And again, I'm really glad it happened because it's given me a platform to talk about this and to help pull other people through narcissistic abuse recovery. But the reason why I didn't leave, it was the love bombing. Like there's a reason why this is a personality disorder and why we talk about it and why experts study it, because they're extremely manipulative. And because it's all of these little micro things that happen along the way, you almost don't realize that it's happening. And because of the gaslighting, then you start to question yourself and you're like, well, maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I should believe him, even when things didn't add up.
Yeah. So happiness, I say this a lot, like happiness as a destination, not wherever you are. You know, that's something that for me, I'm really grateful for in my current relationship where it feels like, you know, we are able to make happy with whatever we got on the table. It's never a conversation of, well, I'll be happy here, or I will be respectful here, or I will love you well here. Or if, you know, it's not a distance thing where it's like, so between here and there, though, you've got to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you know, and you're just kind of like, ugh, you know? Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So the turning point for you was, did something happen? Like, I mean, you're saying that they put this stack of paper in front of you. Did you go home and leave him immediately?
I went home and I confronted him. And it was, this girl is crazy, which, by the way, if you go on a date with somebody, if you're in the dating world or period or even a friendship and they're like, all of their former friends are crazy or all of their exes are crazy, look at what the common denominator is. And guess what? Now I'm the crazy ex. So it was, she's crazy. And finally, we talked for about 45 minutes. And he goes, I know this conversation is important, but I need to get some sleep.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry. Someone just brought like a stack of like revealing evidence and you need a nap. Yeah. I need a nap. Yeah. Like that's wild.
Yep.
So, and you, I mean, you didn't pack up. You didn't just walk out. Like, what do you?
It was my house.
I know. Where would you go? Right.
It was my damn
I'm not leaving my house. I know. I get it. Okay. So at what point did this thing end? And did it end badly? Was there, because listen, fires. Okay. We setting stuff on fire. We are losing it. Like what happened?
So it was the next morning. So I had actually asked if we could have the kids the night before because my nephew was getting married that weekend. And I will forever, like I get teary-eyed every time I talk about it. I will forever resent him for that thing the most, that I missed my nephew's wedding because I could not emotionally go and I had to get him out of my house. So it was the next morning. It was, remember when I got shingles and I confronted him about cheating on me? Well, that was one of the dates of evidence that this girl had given. And so they stayed at a Crowne Plaza hotel.
Ew.
And there's only a few in the Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, Chad, now we've driven him out of the state. He no longer lives in Minneapolis.
Y'all, Chad's on the loose.
He moved to Dallas.
Oh, ladies, Chad's on the loose.
Dallas.
Texas ladies, watch out, okay? Don't get your Chad Collective shirt because, oh no.
So I got on the phone and it just was by pure chance. It was like, I'll just call the three. So I called, and the first one I said, "Hi, this is Mrs. blah, blah, blah. And, I wanted to get a copy of the receipt from a recent stay that we had." And they said, "Okay, hang on one second." And I'm sitting on the edge of my bed. I'm sweating.
Gosh.
I have a pit in my stomach. I am just like shaking uncontrollably, which I didn't sleep a wink. My adrenaline was just, my cortisol. Oh my gosh. I was just like on hyperdrive, questioning every single thing that I missed, every gut instinct that I ignored over the past year and a half. Like, all of this is just reeling in my mind. And they come back on the phone. And, they're going to come back with one of two answers. We don't have a receipt. We don't have a record of that stay. Mm-hmm. Or where would you like me to send that receipt to? And it was the latter.
Oh.
So I had my hard evidence that there was no denying it. So I texted him after he had skirted the kids out of the house at a very ungodly early hour of the morning. It was about 7 or 7:30 in the morning. And so I just texted him the receipt, and I was like, "Here's the receipt of the stay that you didn't have. You need to get your stuff out." And I just gave him options. But even up until that point, that was the moment where I got my power back.
Sure.
That was the moment where I started to come home to me.
Yes.
And fully started living authentically as the Ginny that I've always been, but had suppressed for so many years.
Oh, I'm so happy for you that even happened, that you're able to get out in that way. But my God, girl, that is not a small feat. And I imagine after that, and I, maybe I'm leading a little bit because I know some of this story, but do people run into narcissism again after that? Because we were talking kind of in the beginning about, cleaning up shop, or having a picker that feels broken, what did you have to do to heal, recover? And then kind of, quickly, did you find that you were seeing narcissism in other places? And do you still pick narcissist?
Yes, unfortunately. Not as much anymore.
Wow.
So if you think of it kind of as like a game of whack-a-mole.
Okay.
So you get one narcissist out of your life, and then you kind of as you're building more awareness of the patterns and behaviors of both yourself and the other people around you, you start to see, okay, now this is the most problematic relationship in my life. What do I need to do about it? How do I manage this relationship? Or do I? And so I think it's definitely gotten less and less. I feel like I've done a really good job of eliminating them out of my life. But there have still been times where I've gotten sucked in and I'm like, oh man, how did I let that one happen? I should have known this. Not necessarily romantic. Or if I do notice it, I'm able to see it much more quickly and eliminate it. So I have this method that I call NarcDar, how to increase your radar for narcissism.
Yes. Tell me all about NarcDar, because I was talking about this with Alex, the other day, because Alex is just about one of the first thing I looked for. And I'm going to just throw this out to everybody because I think it's helpful. When I was looking for a new partner, I saw this little thing on the internet where someone was like, I met his parents. What made me think that he'd be okay? I was like, and when I thought back to my relationships I've had, wherever I've met their parents, and they've had, I met one person whose parent was a hoarder. Obviously, I'm going to run into somebody with an issue, someone whose parents have been, hospitalized for mental health issues 4 and 5 times, and then I'm seeing certain traits and behaviors. Obviously, I'm going to run into an issue, right? So when I met Alex's parents, y'all, these people are just about the kindest, simplest, well-adjusted people in the world. And I was like, oh, okay. So like you said, my NarcDar is better, as in I know something is up, but it's not as good as you, Ginny, where I can't tell what it is. Sometimes I'll be like, something's up with her and I don't know what it is. And then I'll try to explain it away nicely because I feel like I don't want to label people. So how do you do it?
You're already doing it. The fact that you are saying something doesn't feel right here and you're taking a look at it, that's the first step. And so NarcDar really, it's about recognizing the patterns, right? It's about recognizing it, how to respond to it, right? Like, and only you can make that decision for you, because some people you maybe can't completely eliminate from your life. So then how do you manage it? How do you respond to it?
Right. Like a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people don't realize you could have a narcissistic child, particularly if you like, maybe are a step parent or you adopted or you have taken in a child. Like you never know what your situation is. And I fortunately do not have narcissistic children, just disclaimer. But, if that were the case, what are you going to do? You got to figure out how to manage that.
Yeah. You can never control their behavior. So you have to understand how you can recover. It's never about controlling them. It's only about taking ownership of your own actions and behavior. And then how to become a repellent. And there's so many things, like narcissistic abuse actually messes with your central nervous system.
So tell me about that scientifically, because I feel like I've been through some things and I physically see responses. People don't know. Like I have like psoriasis now, had shingles, had high blood pressure. Like I am the healthiest. A lot of people will send me messages and say, Nicole, after you've made a lot of changes in your life, you physically look like you're reverse aging. Part of that is Botox. We're going to keep it very real. Okay. But part of it also is that like, I felt like I was healing, like physically, not just mentally. You're telling me that there's science that supports that.
Absolutely.
Girl.
And it's why you have to pay attention. I mean, people get anxiety, they'll become hypervigilant. Like I believe that I am a highly sensitive person because it's the hypervigilance. You become less trusting of things. So there definitely can be, and then you're more reactive. You can become triggered more easily. And so meditation, box breathing, they're like doing the work, like journaling, doing all of those things are so beneficial. I also believe in solo travel. I call it soul, like SOULO travel, because it's so good for your soul. And like what's counterintuitive for people is if they go through something like this, they want to like surround themselves with people. And you do need a good support system.
Right.
But my biggest thing is spending time with yourself so that you get to trust yourself, learn yourself, and love yourself again.
That's so good. So if there was one thing that you would want people to know, right? Like if they're listening to this right now and they're just trying to navigate, because, with narcissistic abuse, one of the things that happens is the minute is sort of a thought enters your mind, there's something, either a gaslight narrative or, or gaslit narrative or something that kind of counteracts it, right? But if someone's sitting here with us in this moment saying, Nicole, like Ginny's just told us so much about what this looks like in experience and how she has survived as a tough and strong woman. What is the thing they need to know? What is the ask you have for them that you think is going to change the world and how it views narcissism and their own existence?
Narcissistic abuse is real. It is real. It is why it is studied. Dr. Ramani is probably the biggest world's guru right now. And she says that 1 in 6 people are narcissists. So my biggest thing is, and we're seeing it a lot too right now, like with the Diddy and Cassie case. And you asked the same question, why didn't you leave? My biggest thing is believe a victim. When they come forward, when they finally get the courage to come forward and share their story. Now, unfortunately, there are people that will do, narcissists are famous for smear campaigns, right? So what you have to look at is the differentiation between the intent. So one example, like a small thing, like look at the details. So one small thing is I've never used names publicly. And that's a big thing. So what you'll notice is a narcissist will go on a smear campaign and they will use
every single detail about that they could possess about your life or people around you.
Yes.
And just try to put it all out there.
I used fiction, fictional names, mainly out of protection for the children, but also because I was concerned about that. Like, I don't want to, and so the intent was to share my story of what I went through. And if his actions make him look bad,
that's on him.
Then that's on him.
But also, if you keep it private and you're not saying their name, like who raises their hand to be like, it's in writing my book, there was actually a thing that they told me, which they called the small dick clause, right? Where they literally were like, if you don't want an ex to ever claim that the story is about them, just describe him and be like, yeah, he had a really small dick and he was terrible at sex. And then hopefully they won't sue you because they don't want to be like, I was that small dick ex. So this part is all about me, so, I mean, it's always interesting because a narcissist wants the attention no matter what. So even if you're like there being like, you were horrible and this was bad, they're like, well, yes, it's about me, but also this. And it's like, if you had just been quiet, would nobody had known? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of what I would say is like, believe them when they finally get the courage to come forward and pay attention to the details. Like, how is it being portrayed? What is the intention? Because there are a lot of things that can be confused. So I'll oftentimes do a like this or that, where narcissistic behaviors can be confused with healthy behaviors, like a discard and a hoover versus someone going no contact.
What is a discard and a hoover?
So it's what narcissists do. Once you stop giving them supply or they're not getting what they want, they'll just discard you, like they'll ghost you. And then all of a sudden, when they're not getting enough supply elsewhere, they'll hoover back to you just to see if they can get you to engage. But that is a manipulative behavior. But if you have a narcissist in your life or someone that's toxic or abusive and you go no contact and you block and eliminate them out of your life, that's for protection. That's self-preservation. And so it can be confusing. That's why it's so important to talk about these things in an informed way, research-based, like really looking into it and from a place of experience.
Yes. Oh, Ginny, when I tell you, if there wasn't a reason to read the book before, y'all get the book. You're my favorite. It's so, so good. And follow Ginny Priem everywhere on social media because she's talking about this. She's teaching about this. And I just thank you so much for being so willing to tell us more about your life, your experience, narcissism, and how you are a survivor. Thank you.
Thank you.